Welcome back to Self-Help Made Simple Academy. We last left you off from lesson 1, where we talked about our desires and our passions and found out what we're good at, and among other things. Today we're going to delve into the journey to becoming. That's lesson 2. Here we're going to talk about setting goals, number 1, finding out what type of goals have you narrowed it down to of all your desires and your passions. We're going to start setting goals. Number 2, going to look at the education and schooling and the type of training that you'll need. And number 3, practice and gaining experience. That's getting out in the field and getting it done. So let's start with lesson 2, Journey to Becoming. And the first part of the lesson is setting goals. Among setting goals, we have to be very clear in what we want. We cannot have a vague idea of what we really want to be accomplished. We need to be specific about what we want. We can't just say, I want to be famous, or I want to be well known, or I want to be successful. Let us define what successful is by narrowing it down into specific set of goals. Try to come up with 3 or 4 that we want to really work on. It has to be concrete, meaning we have to know what exactly it is that we want accomplished. And it has to be measurable, where we can have the proof that we've accomplished a certain task. We have to measure it. It has to be measurable, meaning we will have to be at this level to define it as successful. Like in 30 days, we want this to be done. Or we want to start school. And what are we doing towards that? Or we want to get a job, or open a new career, or begin a new career, I should say. Those are concrete goals that we want to be discussing here. Try to be specific. And then list a time frame. Like, when do you want it accomplished? In a year? In 6 months, few months, couple weeks? And we could even delve into further, what do we want to be in 2 years? What do we want to be in 5 years, 10 years, etc.? So list the major goals that we might want in 5 years or 10 years. List the smaller goals, which are 1 or 2 years within reasonable amount of time. And even further, measuring the smallest little goals. Whether it be writing out the application, constructing a resume, coming up with a plan to get where you want to be. That's part of the setting goals process. Let's look at our financial goals that we want to be. This is one of those measurable type of goals, where have a certain set amount of money that you want to be at, salary-wise, or monthly, how much you want to make per month, or weekly. Have that as one of your measurable goals. How much money do you want to be making in 5 years? Write that down. Spiritual goals. This is not really one of those measurable goals. It's one of those that you just feel. But what are we going to do to reach that? Are we seeking help? Have we gained any personal knowledge? Are we writing a journal of our growth? And are we keeping track of our thoughts and our negative thinking? And what are we doing to change that? Let's also discuss our physical goals. This could be weight, a weight issue. How many pounds you want to be at? A certain set goal weight that you would want to be. If you're 50 pounds overweight, 100 or whatever, have that be a measuring stick. But remember that sometimes there's a progression, obviously. When it comes to losing weight, you have to lose this. It can't just lose it all overnight. It has to be something that you have to take like a ladder, a process, little by little. And sometimes you won't get it per week. With weight, you may have to do a monthly measure rather than a weekly, because there could be a week where you felt like you were doing everything right and it just didn't work. So let's try to set a monthly goal for this type of goal. And in the earlier lesson, we discussed our desires as one of our things that we wanted to figure out, what we have and our passion and all that. Well, I hope that those desires and those passions have helped narrow down to a specific goal that you would like accomplished. Is it a certain job position that you want to obtain or have? Is it a certain type of business you would like to own or start up? Remember that in the process. Do you want to be in the medical field? Do you want to be in the business? Do you want to be in sales? I hope that all the desires and the passions that you've thought about and written down have now narrowed it down into 3 or 4 specific set of goals that you would like to reach in the near future. I also want to remind you that when we are achieving a certain goal, that it takes steps to reach that. And we need to narrow it down into the smallest steps. So it makes it easily for you to follow. So you want to go back to school? Well, what are the steps to go back to school? Let me give you some examples. We're going to apply to that school. If we have any credentials, we're going to get those credentials. If we have any transcripts from old schools, we will have to do that. That's part of the steps in the procedure. If we want to own our own business, do we know enough about the business? That's part of one of the steps, is researching the industry and the business. Do we know how to obtain the funds to invest in your business? Who can we seek for that business to help us, to guide us along, to maybe provide support? Who will be that support? That's part of the process of owning your own business. Where do we want to have our business? At home? Open up a place? Have we researched if it's a restaurant? Have we researched location? Have we found out if there's a market for it, and then how to narrow down that market and get the market for it? Which is another part of owning any business, is knowing your market. So that's part of the steps as well. Knowing your market, and then how to approach that market of people, that demographic, that certain age, that type of group of people that have interests in the things that you sell, your service or your goods. That's part of the procedure in the marketing strategy. And I also understand that some goals in this part of the lesson are just part of the steps that it takes to reach the ultimate goal. So let's say you want to become a certain position in the field of your interest, that step one will be to obtain the education. That's part of one goal. And the second goal may be finding the job, finding the position, finding where to own it. And the third goal may be, how do I become successful from that? In discussing the success portion of that goal and how to achieve that. So make the goal for that as well. You have to think about, how will you achieve that goal of success? What are the steps that it needs to take? How much money do you want to be making? Because that's the measurable portion. And concrete is the exact company that you want to own, or the business you would like to own, or the position that you would like to become. That's all part of stating the goals. So let us continue in this lesson a little bit later. But number one of this lesson number 2, is setting goals. And I hope you've been able to narrow it down into 3 or 4, and then working from there. And breaking each one of those goals into smaller goals. So small goals leading into bigger goal. Bigger goals leading into ultimate major goals. So let us not hold back, but let's discuss what we really want to become, where we really want to be in 1 to 5 to 10 to 15 years in our future. Let's never limit ourselves. So thanks for joining us again. On the next part of this lesson, we're going to be talking about education, schooling, and training that you will need, and how to grow about that. We talked a little bit about in this lesson, but we'll go into it further. And we'll also talk about practice and gaining the necessary experience that will be needed to become ultimately successful and being and living your true calling in life. So this is Jason Radliff at Self-Help Made Simple Academy. I'll talk to you later.